Back in February, and I should say a year ago, February 2019, we had some floods. So I had flooding in my basement. So that was the result of there was big snowstorm, big melt. It all came in the basement. Then we had like 3 days of pouring rain. So it was a mess. So I had to rip up the carpet that we had just put in. Actually, it's very expensive and really nice thick carpet. It was lovely. But I had to rip all that up, tear down part of the wall to see where the water was coming in. And so anyway, by the end of it, the damage wasn't too bad. I was able to because I lifted the carpet right away and put it up on sawhorses. I could dry it, so I just replaced the underpad, stretched the carpet back out, and everything was pretty much back to normal, except for the wall. So I left the concrete wall exposed because it was February, then we still had March, April, May, so all the rains, all the melting, and all that to come. So I thought I better just leave it and just make sure that there's nothing more seeping through because I had done some patching and stuff. Anyway, um, 1 month turns into the next, turns into the next, turns into the next, and that wall never really got built. And the reason for that, the reason that I told myself was because I didn't have the right vehicle. So I used to have a truck, and it was great. I could throw whatever I wanted in the back of that, and it was fantastic. But I had a midlife crisis, and I bought myself a car. So I don't think anybody outside my family knows this, but the car's name is Brenda. Her name is Brenda, and she's 300 horses that are just itching and raring to go, wrapped in steel. It's beautiful. So there's no way that I'm going to be strapping anything to the top of that car. It's just simply not going to happen. So the wall never got rebuilt because I didn't have the materials. So a year later, and it's still not done. Anyway, last week, of course, we had the break-in at the church. So in the middle of the night, I had to strap some wood on the top of the car so I could come down and fix the window. So I thought, well, if I'm going to do that for the church, I no longer have any excuse to not do that for my wife. I have to finally fix this wall, right? We have to stop living so rough. So that's what I did this week. I went out and I got some paneling. I've been painting it and cutting it and fitting it, getting that wall rebuilt bit by bit. But it's interesting how long I actually put that off because it's been a year and a month, a year and 6 weeks. Now I did have plans at Christmas that I was going to not so much do the work at Christmas, but I have a son who has a truck and he was going to be with us for Christmas. So the plan is we'd slide out to Rona and get the building materials that we needed. Excuse me, but it never really seemed to happen. He had one dog was sick and one dog was injured, and it was kind of a little bit chaotic, so it never really materialized. But off the top of my head, I can think about half a dozen people here at the church who've got trucks that would be more than happy to run out to Rona or Turkstra or whatever and pick up the things that I need. The problem is that I can't ask. So I guess that's a little bit of an admission. I don't like to ask for anything, and I don't know whether it's the way that I've been raised or the way that I am. I think if I'm being completely honest, I have to say it's probably a pride issue that I would much rather be the one helping other people than asking for help. And I think that's a fairly common situation. I think most of us actually find ourselves in that place that we think that we should be self-sufficient or we should be the caregivers, and we really don't like asking for help. Of course, we also have the little bit dark side of that of well, I shouldn't have to ask because if you loved me and if you knew me, you would know. But this is obviously not a road that we want to go down because that's terrible. But the end result is that whether it's through pride or because we're maybe afraid of other people or we don't want to put them out, we're not sure whether we're worthy enough in somebody else's eyes for them to help us. But the point is that we simply don't ask. Now, there's two ways of asking. Jesus talks about asking, and he says that we're supposed to ask God for things. He said, ask and it will be given to you. Search and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. Because everybody who asks will receive. And everybody who seeks will find. And to everybody who knocks on the door, that door will be opened unto you. Right? I wonder if maybe we just don't quite embrace that. We don't quite believe it. Maybe we don't want to ask because we don't want to hear that no. But we're supposed to be coming to God with everything. In Philippians, Paul writes, in everything, we need to come to God in prayer. There's nothing too small to pray about. There's nothing that's too minor or inconsequential that we can't bring it before God and talk to God about it. Now, we should certainly be bringing things towards God in prayer. And that doesn't mean necessarily that we pray our grocery list or our shopping list or to-do list. But if we're concerned about something, we need to bring it before God. The other thing that we need to do, and I think this is maybe the harder part, is we also have to bring it before God's people, because God frequently works through his people. Now, in his letter, James writes that you do not have because you do not ask. And there's certainly truth in that. I mean, that's exactly my situation, why my basement has been left half done for a year, simply because I didn't want to ask. And I think that at this particular time, um, this becomes rather an important lesson for us because we're all sitting at home. Some of us are sitting at home alone. Some of us are sitting at home with families. But certainly there are things that we're going to need that we're not able to supply ourselves. And this is especially the time that we can't be afraid to ask for help when we need it. Because keeping social or keeping distance, like physical distance, does not mean that we have to be socially isolated. We can certainly reach out through the telephone, through email, through videos, through all kinds of technology. But this is the time that we need to be looking out for one another because as we minimize our trips to the grocery store, maybe it's just as easy to do the shopping for your neighbor as well and pick up the things that she needs. So at this time, I really want to encourage all of us to not be afraid to ask for help because there's nothing more tragic to me than somebody sitting at home and suffering alone because they're afraid to reach out. And for those of us who are a little bit more outgoing and gregarious, let's not wait to be asked. Let's make sure that we are reaching out and touching other people and making sure that their needs are being looked after without them needing to ask. Because this is what church is. This is what our community is. Loving, caring for one another, all in the name of Christ.